Little both. Welcome in the Cafe Nightly Show. I'm your host, the Goldsmith. Tonight is the 23rd of September, 2024. We got a couple things today. And again, one of the biggest ones is a long time promise and a delivery that I question some things on. There's excitement there for sure. We'll get into the specifics, but the Cafe and Theater passes for sale now. it's been a promise a year and a half in the making. More than that, I guess, as well. But a year and a half of them making this idea of cafes and the way they're going to come in the game and the fact that players can have them and run them. If you really think about it, it's years in the making, because Upland talked about these ideas of these spaces, these social spaces, and being able to run events and host events. And that goes all the way back to the earliest history of Upland 5+ years ago. Being able to start imagining what these social spaces look like and how they can, be interacted and how people can access them. So this is something that a lot of people have been waiting for a very long time for. People have been waiting for it as a form of meta venture, a form of people being able to run a business in the game of Upland by putting out content and sharing content and being able to control that space. And now that it's finally here, we'll get into some of the details we have, and we'll go over a couple of the details we don't have, because there's been some iterations that have been discussed, and some things are not ready and some things are, and we don't know which are ready and which aren't, so the details are limited. NFLPA game night. So tonight, Monday, is single game Monday Night Football. NFLPA partnership in Upland opening a new channel in the game, in-game communication. And Upland using that, or encouraging people to hang out in that space. Get into a little more of the details there. And then otherwise, there's been some things dripping around for the last week and a half. We'll leave it at there's a few things that are going on that we should keep our eyes on, one of which is a pretty big contest with pretty big payouts here for a Sparklet import contest. We'll get into that and remind people about that as it is continuing to run. And ultimately, cross our fingers, get ready, because we are ready to go into our fall season of the game of Upland. So we'll kind of get ready for that as we are finishing up the last week or so of in-between time, in between sizzle season and harvest season. We're almost there. Before we get into anything, obviously, as always, all views and opinions expressed by myself, they're mine and mine alone, should not be taken as game strategy or financial advice. They represent the game of the team of Upland. All views and opinions expressed by those who are contributors, they're theirs and theirs alone, should be taken as game strategy advice, should be taken as financial advice, and they don't represent the game of the team of Upland. Myself, the Goldsmith of the Cafe Nightly Show. Easy enough. Getting things started, obviously, we are looking at one of the biggest announcements in a long time, one of the things that have been teased and have been talked about and kind of had a bit of speculation for a very long time. When's it going to happen? How's it going to happen? Some false speculation of different ways this is going to be introduced, different ways people are going to be able to interact and get involved. How do you get qualified to be one of the first shops or first cafes or theaters in the game of Upland? And ultimately, there's been some false starts here. In 2023 at Genesis Week, there was a number of these cafes that were given out. They were supposed to be the first cafes in the game of Upland. They were going to be the cafes that Upland was going to test the cafe systems with, or the player-run cafes with. And that didn't really happen. We didn't see those open up, and we didn't see a bunch of cafes open up from people who had won these passes in the past. We did have one of the first iterations of a player-run cafe, a player-run theater with, we're seeing the Rabbit Hole Theater, how that's kind of evolved. That's been something that was started by Left House, and the game of Upland kind of worked with Left House in putting that out and customizing that and bringing that in the game of Upland. We also saw a space that is akin to a cafe space that gets opened up for Track Hero, and saw that develop and saw a game inside that space. But we didn't really have these people who were random winners who had their names drawn. Didn't really see them bring cafes in the game. And now we have another one of these random opportunities to win these cafe spots. And we'll get into how that's going. But it's kind of interesting here as well, in that it's not a qualification thing. It's not people saying, this is why I want to have a cafe. This is what I'm going to do with it. This is how I'm going to do it. Then Upland approves people. This is another one of those random, I win the opportunity to do it. I build the structure. I put the pass in, and poof, now I have a cafe, which is a space that has a interior space and interior interaction, and now I get to monetize it, or I get to use it as a business in the game of Upland. Let's take a look at how Upland puts this out there, because there are still a lot of questions here. Looking forward to getting some more answers, and I am going to work on getting a couple here later this week. I know we're waiting to hear back from the team on some of the finer points on this announcement, and maybe this is worth a little bit of AMA. It's been a while since when this happened. It'd be worth the team talking more about this and how this is going to affect the future of Upland, because this is a big thing to affect the future of Upland. But here's the announcement. The time has come for cafes and theaters passes to become available. Again, this doesn't mean that they're starting immediately. These passes are coming out. Always wanted to run an interior space. This is one for you. This UPX only, again, thank you so much, Upland. I complain about all the things we cannot do with UpWix. Here is a thing we can do. We have these sales that are only in USD. This is a sale that is only in UpX. And again, I have all this UpX sitting there waiting for something just like this. The UPX only sale has a registration period that is currently open. It is going to have a sale at 9 a.m. PT tomorrow. Again, that is something. Adjust your time accordingly, because this will happen fast. 9 a.m. PT tomorrow on the 23rd of September. Oh, that's wrong. The sale begins on the 24th. Yes, the registration period opened on the 23rd of September. Goes from the 23rd of September into the 24th of September. 8 a.m. PT. I expect that registration period to end. But 9 a.m. PT is the time of the sale tomorrow, the 24th of September. Again, PT time. Keep that in mind. This is first revealed. Again, this is Upland's words here, and they are kind of putting this out here. First revealed during Genesis Live in the Las Vegas. 2023, not 2024. Keep that in mind. These exclusive passes open up, and I guess 2024, we talked about the passes, but I would say these passes tie back to the year prior when we're talking about the winning the opportunity to have these. 2024, we talked about now that we have these partnership, and now we're having the building out and the ability to build out, and we have a more and better familiarity with Nowhere, what these cafes are going to be like, what these passes are going to be like, and these passes will eventually be for sale. That did happen at Genesis Live 2024. That was an announcement. These exclusive passes are open up. Then they're opening up a exciting new chapter for Uplanders, allowing players to unlock even more creative controls over their properties. Again, a 3D internal space where you can customize in many ways, and that is the idea of a cafe. That is the idea of a theater space. There are two types of passes available, the Blueprint Pass and the Nowhere Interior Pass. The Blueprint Pass. With this pass, players gain the ability to create specific structures in Upland. Again, this is a definition of two versions or two pieces of passes here. Specific structures in Upland, adding a whole new layer of customization of the real estate. So again, with this pass, players gain the ability to create specific structures in Upland. Huge thing. Again, interior space, being able to have something, do something, use this in a new way. Nowhere Interior Passes. This pass empowers players to completely redesign the interior spaces of their structure. Again, there are going to be a first iteration. We know there's going to be potentially a larger expanse. Upland talks about everybody being able to do something like this. Maybe an interior space inside of structures are going to be different for a residential structure than they are for a cafe structure, than they are for a theater space. But this is a start where this is being opened up to a larger amount of people. It's not just the 3 or 4 cafes that currently exist. Again, there's been a couple that have been partnership cafes. There's been one that was for the theater space for the Rabbit Hole Theater. There was one that was for, or 2 iterations of it, but one that was for Track Hero. And again, this is now opening up to a broader number of people. This is going to be your opportunity to really make those spaces your own. But again, give people a place to congregate that you have more control over. This is what we're looking at. See these images? Woo, look at that. That's a theater right there. That's what a cafe looks like. Details. These passes will be available for purchase directly from the Upland store, either through the web or in-app. Again, this is a UPX purchase. This is a big deal because this is an opportunity to actually use the UPX. Here's everything you need to know about the upcoming release. Registration opens Monday, September the 23rd at 9 a.m. PT. Sale starts on Tuesday the 24th at 9 a.m. PT. Pricing 250,000 UPIX for the cafe bundle, 400,000 UPIX for the theater bundle. For the overall quantities, there's going to be 15 of the cafe bundles. There's going to be 7 of the theater bundles overall available. And this is going to be we don't know how many people are going to register. And I always say this is going to be one of those things that is highly oversubscribed. But this is going to be one of those things that's highly oversubscribed. The whole idea here is just like when we have terminal sales. There may be hundreds of thousands of people, probably thousands of people who register for either of these sales. There'll be a percentage of the people who register for these sales who do not have the UPIX to actually purchase these. There'll be a lot of people who register for these sales who do have the UPIX to purchase these. Those who do get lucky and get in the earlier side of the line, they're going to have to make sure to actually be there at 9 a.m. PT tomorrow to take advantage of their early spot, of their purchase opportunity, their chance to get in and buy one of the first cafes to actually open up the game of Upland. There are some questions here, so we'll get into the rest of the language so we can touch on some more of these questions. Each bundle includes, like I said, a unique mix of two legits, one blueprint pass and one interior pass. Again, blueprint to build the structure itself, interior pass to customize what's inside of it, giving players the tools to customize specific venues. Players can trade each pass individually. That means I can sell one or the other. But to create a fully functional cafe or theater, you must have both. You must have an interior and exterior, and they must both be for the same type of structure or the same type of artifice. So you've got a cafe or you've got a theater, one or the other. They must have the corresponding model and burn the matching interior pass. Easy. So for the cafe bundle, they're going to include one cafe blueprint and one cafe interior pass. It's nice they match because you have to burn both to get the structure and the interior. You have a 34% chance of getting a unique tropical interior. Ooh la la, look at that tropical interior, making your venue stand out even more. Or you'll receive the default cafe interior. So essentially, Upland's doing a 34-66% split. So there's one that's twice as common as the other, right? There's going to be 2 times as many as there are of this one. So two times of the 66% essentially, close. 66-34, close to 2/3. 66-34 split here. With the most common obviously being default, with that one that's rare for a third of them overall. And then we see this in the theater bundle. The split's a little different. It includes a theater bundle, theater blueprint, and a theater interior pass. There's a 43% chance you'll unlock the pop-up theater interior. Otherwise, you receive the regular default theater. Look at that. Look at that pop-up art here. Quick note here. This is an iterative state. We talked about the blueprints, the first blueprint in the game of Upland that was won by people who had burned the first 3 passes. They had to go and burn the first 3 seasons passes, essentially held on to them and then burnt them. If you burnt them within that window, you got this blueprint. You got to build a custom structure. We did that blueprint test so we could have more blueprints and have more blueprints do things in the game of Upland. You know, my theory was that we were going to get the blueprints where people were going to be able to make custom models as UGC. And I think that still is coming, but that wasn't the first iteration. UGC content wasn't the first iteration of expanded blueprint use. This is the first real iteration of expanded blueprint use, where you can buy, style, trade these blueprints, take them and build a structure, and then attach an interior burn so you can have a structure and have an interior space that you can utilize with that exterior, with that specific structure type. These bundles offer an incredible opportunity to create spaces in Upland like never before, but don't miss out on your chance to grab one of these limited passes and start building or customizing. Say again, this is a big promise that was made a long time ago. This idea that you could have these social spaces and have control over them. And as the proprietor of this social space, as a proprietor of a cafe, as a proprietor of a theater, you can control many of the elements that happen inside there. That there is going to be additional features, like we talked about cafes. Upland has instituted beverages at the cafe, meaning that they're a way of tipping the proprietor. You have this virtual beverage, aka a limited short time effect that you can use inside that space. And for that limited short-term effect that you can use to differentiate yourself inside that space, and as a 3D avatar, with your 3D avatar, you are compensating the owner of that structure, of that space, blank amount. And historically, these have been in UPIX, and this is a way of theoretically monetizing these spaces. And maybe other ways to monetize these spaces. Upland has talked about the potential of gating cafes, which means somebody has to have a certain NFT potentially. If you own the right NFT, you can come in the space. But this is the iteration of building the structures and having the interiors so that we can make all those other features fit in here. Upland hasn't talked about these as meta ventures, these cafes and meta ventures. Good to see Lily. Good to see Magis. Upland hasn't talked about the specifics of taking these spaces and making them meta ventures. So we have to hold off a little bit some of our excitement, because it might be a little bit before that actually gets turned on. We see that in other cases where Upland gives us A before B is ready. So we have the structure, we have the interior space, we can start doing those things. We had those passes. They may not even be ready, or they don't look like they're probably going to be ready from day one to burn and actually get in and go ahead and actually customize that space. Maybe they will be. Might be surprised. But that isn't a promise that Upland's made. It's that these pass sales are happening. And much like our totem passes originally, and then like totem potion passes, you can buy them and then maybe you hold on to them, and then you have a burn period. And maybe that's the little bit of the, the reserve statement is, oh, by the way, the burn period's in 6 months. I don't think that's going to be the case, but realistically, we're going to find out more about what all of this means and what the meta ventures for the cafes look like, and the meta ventures for theaters look like, and monetization opportunities, and how those are going to lurk. I think those are going to be down the line, but ultimately it looks like if you have the space, you build it, they will come. You build the space, you will be able to do whatever it is that space is supposed to do, as opposed to, hopefully not building the space and being told, you don't really get the meta venture in the other space. We have gotten better about the manufacturing. If you build a factory, you can get more easily you can get a manufacturer in a factory to that you can actually build stuff in from having the structure. And I think that and hope that this is going to be something. You have the structure. There's an easy on-ramp from having the structure, having the interior space package, setting things up, being able to turn that on and do whatever, have people click in, have people participate in your interior space. And again, this is iterative, so we're going to see more features get added to this over time. Whatever features are available from day one, we expect them to be more robust, and we expect them to grow on each other over time. We expect it to be something that's more accessible to more people later, and we expect more and more of these sales to happen over time, where once things are working better or working more easily or working more seamlessly, Upland is able to open more of these up all at once. So this is the first step, and more to come. And obviously, the more successful it is, hopefully, the more quickly this is able to open up to more people. This is something that I've looked forward to for a long time. A lot of people have. Broadcasters have had the opportunity to use Upland space to host shows or to do different things. And in some cases, they've been encouraged to, live hosts go in and use a 3D avatar, have people bring their 3D avatars in, have that hosted space and have interactions in the 3D space. And, it's been hit or miss because, those spaces used to crash, and those spaces used to have, sound issues and glitching issues and issues where people weren't having a great time. And then most of those, I should say, got corrected. We would talk about, seeing Track Hero. We see that Track Hero is a lot more robust than we had previously seen these cafe experiences. And there's more going on with there being an integrated game on top of it just being a social space. So that is all being handled in a much better way than has been in the past. The glitchiness, the bugginess, the potato mode, those things have been getting cleared up. So now that we have cafes without a racetrack in the middle of it, with just a broadcast screen potentially, we're hopefully going to see in many, many ways a improved product. And that's what we're looking for. And I think we're at the point where Upland can actually do this, which is why we're finally having this sale happen. On to the NFLPA in-game chat. Again, Upland's had a number of announcements over the last 2 weeks. about, or last week and a half anyways, about the NFLPA and the 2024 season, how there's a tie into New Orleans having a Spark contest or a Spark staking contest that's happened over time with a reward, with an airdrop that's tied to that, the amount of Spark that is staked in the area of New Orleans, having that have a direct effect on your placement on a leaderboard, and again, earning points along the way, or earning a Spark staked along the way is going to earn you a share of pool. That share of the pool is going to determine how much Sparklet you get. And again, the more accumulated Sparklet staked in New Orleans, the higher that overall payout. So that's going to be something that's exciting to have. And then in line with that, there is a tie with the NFLPA, where there's a special pool of Sparklet going out based on what teams you represent, and the teams are going to compete, and then the first, second, third team get a certain share of the Sparklet. So that's exciting as well. And then we see how there's other NFLPA tie-ins where we're talking about the season-long and weekly contests. These are all things that are a little bit of fun. We see Upland kind of build these around, getting people to want to buy the 2024, 2025 assets, where the existing assets don't necessarily have the same value. In some cases, aren't counted in contests. And I get it. I get that that's something that Upland's doing, but they're also trying to get a little more excitement by engaging people and getting people to engage with each other around the sport itself. Because overall, if you're talking about cultivating fans or reaching fans, you have to get them to connect with the actual source material. You're going to have to give them an opportunity to connect with the actual source material, which is football. And here's some connection right here. Say hello to the brand new NFLPA chat channel over in-game chat, where we talk about different NFLPA legit challenges and Upland, sprinkled with some game watch party action. Join us tonight at 4:15 p.m. PT. Ooh la la, we're past that now. And let us know what you think about your take, and who we think is going to win. Give us your best game commentary for a chance to win. We'll pick 7 participants to win 10,000 Upix each. Again, this is past tense. Just for joining along with the chat with us. Good luck to everybody and happy football. And again, Upland's using the in-game chat channels to help build these opportunities for people to interact with each other, more direct connections with other Uplanders. And again, bringing that all in game of Upland, as opposed to that having to be in other Discord channels, either private or as part of Upland as a small channel, along Upland's Discord. So this is kind of exciting, that Upland's continuing to build this. And yeah, to do this right, to do NFLPA right, to do any sport right, you want to have, if not a direct integration with the action, where, I don't want to get too much into the fact that Upland can't do fantasy, and I wish they could do fantasy. But if you can't do fantasy, at least get people to interact with and engage with and have some excitement for the sports material, the source material, and then have that tie to the assets, the in-game assets. And that's what Upland looks like they're doing here. Looking forward to see more of that happen. And again, if fantasy could happen, oh, would I be so happy. Would you want to touch back on something that we've been working on or discussing or thinking about, and Upland's kind of been dropping little hints on, notes on along the way? The Sparklet Showdown. Again, this is a big thing. Upland's been talking about this a little bit, and it's a big thing because the prizes are big. They're large prizes, they're significant prizes, and they're prizes worth being excited about. They're not the best version of airplanes, but they are some of the earliest versions of airplanes. There's better versions of airplanes out there. So if you're looking for those, they are for sale on the market. I've seen them, but these are pretty nice. These are pretty nice out there as well. Again, this is an encouragement for people to bridge Sparklet into the game of Upland. We had encouragement in the past for Upland to get Uplanders to take Sparklet out of the game of Upland and put it in staking pools so that we could, accelerate people's ability to trade, and so we could cover trade activity as Sparklet was launching. Now there's an opportunity to encourage people who are picking up Sparklet or trying to pull Sparklet from outside the game of Upland and bring it back in. If you just bring your Sparklet out and in, you're going to have some lost efficiency. If you buy Sparklet out of the game of Upland, to bring it where it belongs, into the game of Upland, to use it as a utility, which you have the opportunity to do in New Orleans and earn some points along the way. You have the opportunity to do it in many other ways. There is a reward here for doing so. Again, this is a competition. The competition is about bringing as much sparklet as possible to the game of Upland. The more you bridge in, the higher you're going to place on that leaderboard. Start bridging in. The second the competition is announced, people were able to start bringing in sparklet. Stake in New Orleans as you bridge in. Start staking in New Orleans to maximize your potential in the road to the big game challenge. Again, ongoing challenge. Climb the leaderboard. Aim for the highest net bridge in by the competition's end, which is going to be September 27th, 9 a.m. PT. Full details on how to bridge sparklet in Upland has a little bit of process for you to follow, and here is a direct link to it. So take a look, get there, how to bridge sparklet into Upland. You get more details at that post. The rewards, top 3 players do get a MV Aviation, again, 100 Sparrow plane, so an Aviation Sparrow 100 plane as a symbol of high status in the Upland Metaventure. The exclusive plane will undoubtedly make you stand out. 4th through 6th place, drive away with a Series 1E, again, not Series 1R, not Series 1 regular, Series 1E MV motor, a high-end car that adds serious value to any player's collection. Check out the leaderboard live here. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at it because it's been out for a bit. 27th is this coming Friday. You have an opportunity to help yourself out. Southern Beast has brought in 99,510 sparklet. King Cody, the one and only, 45,730 sparklet brought into the game of Upland. Mr. Mojave, 44,900. And then you see that drop right off. So first, second, third is separated by a ways from 4th, 5th, 6th. 20,000, 15,750. 12,810. We got 3 down there. Number 24, Crypto Cobb and Ace 696. All rounding up 4th, 5th, 6th. That means you have a long jump from 4th place to 1st, 2nd, 3rd. That means if you're in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, you are leading the pack in a pretty decent way. Let's look at a reality here. Anybody can jump in towards the end here. Dark Horse, or somebody intentionally waiting, or somebody waiting for a payday, or somebody moving money around to get ready for it, or waiting for it to get bridged into the game of Upland. And they could jump into 1st place, 2nd place, 3rd place here pretty easy. It's not something that you have to do cumulative over time. It's something you have to just do one time. You could do a little bit, or you could bridge it all in as much as possible, as quick as possible, and jump up at the top of the list. But it is worth noting the following. I can get 1,000 sparklet right now for, let's take a look. Sparklet is a publicly traded token. It is out on exchanges, multiple exchanges. I can see what the value is. Again, it can be slightly different on one exchange rather than another if you're trying to buy it in USD. But let's look at CoinMarketCap. CoinMarketCap says that sparklet right now, and we see a little bit of a jump here. We'll see it move up on a daily basis, but it is 5.88 cents currently, just under 6 cents currently. Oh, there it goes. It goes up after I say that. 5.92 cents. Again, almost 6 cents a sparklet. So we go back to look at the top here on the list. If we can go and take that look at the list, we can find it. There we go. So 5.66 cents. Then we move the decimal point over to boop, boop. Multiply it by 5. Boop. We're looking at $2,000. Ooh la la, USD. You're looking at $2,000-$3,000 worth of sparklet that people are bringing into the game to compete here. This is a pretty big deal. That's a lot of money as far as I'm concerned. Because again, we're talking about the equivalent of 4 or 5. Yeah, we're talking about the equivalent right now of 45 spark. Again, sparklet has drawn down in value significantly from when people were paying $460 per spark. We're talking about literally 45 spark, almost 100 spark worth of value that people have brought out of the game into the game. And again, that is an intentional thing on the part of Upland, and more power to them because sparklet belongs in the game of Upland. And if there's an incentive for more sparklet to exist in the game of Upland, there's less incentive potentially to leave it out of Upland until the value goes up. And the people who are trying to acquire Sparklet to bring it into the game of Upland, who are trying to buy, like I said, who are trying to buy that, in this case, 45,000 Sparklet, they probably can't buy 45,000 Sparklet for the same price as they could before, because it might be pushing it up as there's less and less supply that's outside the game of Upland. If there's an incentive, if there's a demand to acquire more Sparklet, that may also help in increasing the price of Sparklet. And there's a value in doing so. We can't use these incentives to overly inflate the value of Sparklet, because when the incentives go away, it'll just flip the opposite direction. We'll see that if you are too reliant on a incentive to prop up the value of anything, any token, any currency, we see that if we remove that incentive, that currency is going to drop down flat again. But it is definitely worth having these incentives. And hey, if I'm the one who's going to get a plane out of the deal, maybe it's worth getting a plane out of the deal. If the people are considering spending $1,000 USD to get a plane right now, or they're thinking instead I'm going to spend $2,000 or $3,000 to buy Spark and then bring that Spark in the game of Upland, that Spark I'm going to have in the game of Upland, I'm going to be able to stake, I'm going to be able to do many things with for many years, and then also win a plane. That may be where a lot of people's minds are. And again, the keynote here is that once you brought that Spark in the game of Upland, you could continue to use it for what it's intended for. You do have some loss in efficiency in bringing Spark into the game and out of the game. There is gas fees, and there's some inefficiency in the buy rate and sell rate of Sparklet. So if I have to buy Sparklet and then I'm going to later sell Sparklet, I may lose a little. in that efficiency. So ultimately, if I'm going to buy it to hold it, some of that concept of that fear about the inefficiency loss isn't really there, because I know I'm going to use it. I'm going to have that benefit from the use for a long period of time. It's not something I'm going to switch around quickly, and then I got this prize and this reward. So that makes this a very enticing period of time to buy Sparklet, and if that's something you are going to do anyways, and utilize this contest and be a part of this contest, and potentially with $2,000 or $3,000 worth of Sparklet, you're going to have that moving forward, and you're going to potentially list high on this list. Again, no guarantees that someone doesn't come through and leapfrog you towards the end. Good to see you, Trees. How you doing? This is something that we're going to continue to see. If Upland continues to have incentives for people to bring Sparklet into the game of Upland, we're going to continue to see these little rushes, these little micro rushes of people bringing Sparklet into the game of Upland. We have a number of other incentives to earn Sparklet over time here. Upland talked about these incentivization pools for doing different things, with Sparklet being the payout. We have this for staking Sparklet. We currently have the road to the big game this year in New Orleans, where people are staking Sparklet to rise up a leaderboard and get a share of a Sparklet pool, a essentially airdrop pool that's going to drop at the end of the season. So this is kind of a one way to get people to actually utilize that Sparklet and utilize that Sparklet in a specific area. And this is another opportunity for people to bring it into the game of Upland. And now that there's both of those contests working in tandem, we have an incentive for people to bring Sparklet from outside the game, whether or not they are somebody who's been playing the game for 3 weeks, 3 months, or 3 years, bringing that into the game of Upland, and then using that and staking that as Upland intends and that Upland wants into New Orleans, again, through a contest that is going to engage more of the Sparklet that is existing in the pool, hopefully more of the Sparklet that exists in the overall pool, into activity in the game of Upland, discouraging people from keeping it staked outside the game of Upland or having it sit in a cold wallet outside the game of Upland, because now it's going to be earning people something along the way. Again, more Sparklet, and theoretically, on the aside, is you're building Upland structures that potentially going to have more things to do with in the future. Swarley, good to see you. Glad you're here. And that's kind of what we're going to continue to see with Sparklet here, likely with Upland using incentives along the way to get people to interact with it in a better way. And that is something that ties into everything in the game of Upland, and hopefully is going to get a little more necessary in other elements. Upland's talked about how it's going to be a fuel for cars. It doesn't exist right now, but if it existed, that would be a utility that people would have to keep Sparklet in the game of Upland for that specific task. If we talked about more people manufacturing more things or having a need to manufacture more things and staking Spark in order to do so, that might be something that we see creating a greater utility, a greater need for Sparklet. If there was a better utility of structures, and again, we giggle, we laugh, we hope, we pray that someday there will be more utility for structures. There's no justification for me to have 100 structures, but my gosh, I have almost 100 structures. But if I had more utility for more of those structures, my incentive for new structures would be higher. But I do have incentives to build certain structures. I have incentives to build a factory because I can do certain things to the factory. I have incentives to build a storefront or building that storefront is going to allow me to have a meta venture at that storefront. Or I could go and build a cafe, go figure. I can go and build a theater, go figure. These utilities, these reasons to go and use your Spark and building specific things, that's the incentive here. So if Upland can keep incentivizing people using Spark in the game of Upland, no guarantees, no financial advice. That's ultimately what's going to affect the value of Sparklet in the USD sense, in the swap sense, because the more utility it has in the game of Upland, the more people are going to have a reason to want to acquire it, to bring it into the game of Upland. The less Sparklet's going to be out on the exchanges because the more of it's going to be locked in the game of Upland. That's kind of the game Upland's playing here. But at the same time, it's kind of a fringe benefit because the game I've been trying to play is Upland for years. And if Upland can create greater utility for my Spark usage in the game of Upland or Sparklet usage in the game of Upland, then that's the gamification layer. One of the gamification layers we've been looking for in Upland, a greater utility for Sparklet, or greater reasons for Sparklet. And if Upland cares about what their Sparklet cost is or value is or what the token cost is outside the game of Upland, then they're going to care more about people using the game of Upland, which means they're going to incentivize it more, which again, I think when you can give a company or you can give a corporation a carrot that benefits them, that's also benefiting the community, that's when we really see these things start to come around cyclically, and we start to see these things come back around to the player base, and I think we're headed that way. So I'm very excited for more utility, and hopefully seeing that happen very soon, and seeing the cafes become more resilient, and this all work a lot better. And again, Upland do a really good job of increasing utility, and we'll have more demand. We'll have less exterior supply outside the game of Upland, more interior supply. And again, people generally more happy with the Sparklet usage. And I think, again, optimism. Think that is where we're headed. So I'm looking forward to it. Otherwise, what I'm looking forward to is, getting into, this harvest hunt season. We're getting into our spooky season here of the year as we head into October. It is kind of the Creedmoor time to fire things up and get into the ornaments and dust off our old structure ornaments from 2.5-3 years ago. With the first structure ornaments in the game of Upland, the first big partnership in the game of Upland, Spirit Halloween. Love to see those get back out there. Again, you can leave them up year round now, but people are going to put more of them out there when it's the right season because there's an incentive to have them up during the right season. So very much looking forward to that as we head into the season on October 1st. But for tonight, what suggestions do you have for more utility for structures? More utility for structures. What incentives do we have to have structures? The type of meta ventures you can have in a structure, the type of things you can do with anchoring on properties. If there was ways for requirements of structures to exist on a pathway in order to have a racetrack. There was incentives to have a number of structures in a certain area to allow you a different level of utility, such as travel, movement of vehicles. If there was a way to incentivize people to be able to move their vehicles or store their vehicles or do things with their vehicles based on having or not having structures in an area. The ability, we can get a couple more here. The ability to use your structures for storage of things like certain types of legits that right now don't have storage requirements, but in the future could. So if I have a bunch of NFLPA, I want to keep them in a certain structure. I have to keep them in a certain structure. And where am I going to keep them? So I have to build more structures to do that. And I might want to build structures in certain cities so that I can have my legits in the right cities for me to be able to interact with them. And so you have plenty of opportunities for Upland to create more utility for those structures. Again, people are going to be like, I love my wallet. I like the idea of a wallet. I don't like the idea of my assets being tied to specific places. And Again, that's a balance Upwind has to consider. That's something the player base is going to have to look at, the idea of storage. And yes, Swarley, Upwind has talked about storage in the past, about the idea of storage for interior space and how things are stored inside spaces. And maybe cafes give us a highlight to that, this idea of the first iteration of indoor spaces. And then if we can have indoor spaces in a cafe 6 months, 10 months, maybe 2.5 years down the line. But at some point, Upwind has hinted or discussed the idea that maybe at some point the interior space, differentiated, of course, not the same as a cafe, but maybe the idea of interior space could be applied to any structure you own. And then now that we're doing interior space in any structure I own, now I start worried about what that interior space means. Does it mean storage? Does it mean that if I've got 1,000 structures in the game of Upwind, again, a little excessive, but I've got a ton now and I'm continuing to build. If I've got, say, 100 structures, which is realistic for a lot of people now, if I have 100 structures in the game of Upwind, I could use each of them for people to interact with them, kind of like a go between, pass between, maybe go into my structure, being able to pick things up that are reserved for certain people, or people going into a structure and dropping something off that specific person can drop off for me. It's a way of interacting between parties without having to, I don't know, travel between cities maybe, or a way of interacting, me interacting with people without having to have my own meta venture, but I can interact in a small way. So there's a lot of ways. And again, trees, yes, the concept of having structures to increase earnings, having structures built in an area to qualify for a collection, having structures built in an area to allow you to be able to do X, Y, Z. This neighborhood can't do X, Y, Z if it doesn't have a number of structures. So people build more structures in this neighborhood. And maybe you have to own a certain number of structures to unlock a certain feature in the game of Upwind. Upwind talked about in the past people having different levels in the game of Upwind, people being at different statuses, being executive or chief executive, and that unlocking certain features in the game. And now we're finally going to have that with Flight, where executives and up are going to be able to have airplanes. Eventually, again, we're ways out from there, but where that status is going to have some benefit. Well, we could also see having a certain number of structures owned and built as having a certain status that could affect your benefit or add a benefit to your overall play. Again, these are just ideas, but yes, the utility for structures has been something that people have brought up and had concerns with and suggested the importance of for years. There's people who have said rent when for years. And the idea of renting individual spaces in the game of Upwind with as many people as there are owning as many structures as they own, and the most active people be the most likely to rent, but they're the least likely to rent because they own so many structures. That's always been a little bit of a paradox where, what's the incentive of someone coming to the game of Upwind who owns 0 properties to rent rather than to own a structure? So that's been a bouncing around. It's been a concept. Maybe renting is never going to happen, but with the idea of specific structures, unique structures, being able to have specific or unique interactions, cafes, theaters, that's where we're going to see continued utility. And the question is can we make the stuff that we've already built that aren't specific and aren't unique structures valuable? That's what we're going to have to find out over time. And again, continuing to build the old stuff without utility, without new utility being added, I agree. What's the point of it? Well, the point of it right now, to be 100% honest, the point of building structures right now, or staking Spark right now, is to get more Spark dropped to you by being a participant in the Road to the Big Game contest going on right now by staking specifically in New Orleans. And that sounds like a cop-out, but it's not, because there's other ways people have put a lot of effort in to earn a little bit of Sparklet. And hey, I did the math. I talked about it. I showed it where different people could get a different amounts, but me participating, if we hit the max amount, if my amount lines up the way I expect it to over the overall pool, et cetera, I could be, going out there for between 1 and 3 Sparklet. And if I'm competing for between 1 and 3 Sparklet, 1 and 3 Spark. Wow. 1 and 3,000, 1,000 and 3,000 Sparklet. as long as I'm not spending hours a day moving my spark around, which I won't. If I'm spending seconds a day moving my spark around as I finish structures, and this happens slowly over time, and I always move a spark as soon as structures are completed to earn 3,000 sparklet over the course of 3 months. To me, it's worth it. And I think it will be for a lot of people. So for now, that is a utility. For tonight, thank you so much for being here. Monday through Friday, 7:30 p.m. PT. We do get together to do the cafe nightly show here in the Upland Cafe Discord, on Twitter, on YouTube, and hoping to see you tomorrow. This coming Friday, Saturday, we will be in Philly, and I say we, myself and those who choose to be there. The Upland Player Run. Let me get a title. Let's go with community-led Upland East Coast Meetup. That's what we're going to call it. This coming Friday and Saturday in the city of Philadelphia. If you can make it, we'd love to see it. For more details, let me know. But we are going to be at Dave & Buster's on 7 p.m. local time, East Coast time, in Philadelphia. So for the address, so we can get more information, let me know. But that is something we're going to hope to see as many people there as possible. And if you can't make it there, we're doing a tour of the city, of the old city, including the Liberty Bell. Oh my gosh. We're going to go Love Park, I think. We're going to go get to, I don't know, maybe a little Rocky statue. Get some history. Do some walking history. Anyways, Betsy Ross House, all right down the way, in historic old Philadelphia. We'll get an opportunity to go do all of that on Saturday. So if you could be in the city, if you are in the city, if you're traveling the city, we'd love to see you there this coming Friday and Saturday. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here tonight. Hope to see you tomorrow. And of course, if you're in the Upland Cafe Discord, feel free to unmute your mics. The floor is yours.